Hi, my name is Beth Albertin, and today we will be talking about improvement teams and effective meeting skills. For a brief overview, we're going to be talking about why we have improvement teams, the role of the lead improvement team, tips for having a good meeting, communication strategy, ground rules, our seven-step meeting process, the agenda template, effective meeting processes, and the improvement meeting roles. So effective meetings are an essential part of any sort of improvement work. And, well-organized and disciplined meetings should include a representation of all roles, including those who will benefit from our care and services. We also want to make sure we support our multidisciplinary professionals. Therefore, we can learn more about each other, their processes, and different improvement opportunities that we can have for our programs. Having a rhythm of meetings also helps improvement and improvement work become more of a routine habit in our everyday work environment. And having improvement team meetings also moves improvement forward. It's also going to enhance our team dynamics, and it's going to promote joy in our work. So as far as the role of our lead improvement team, we want to make sure we ensure representation from all of our roles. So everyone that is involved in this process. This can even include patients and their family members. This also will serve as a bridge to the staff that we represent as well as others in our roles. We want to make sure we facilitate information and data flow back and forth between everyone in the group. And it's also really important to get everyone in the game of improvement. So sometimes your improvement team may not be all of your members of your team. Maybe you'll have a select group of people or a smaller group. But it's important then for everyone else to be involved and be aware of what is going on. The improvement team also needs to draft any documents and invite the other staff members to review this so they can also be engaged in this process. And the improvement team also needs to be posting the material for everyone else on that team to be able to see and review. And then, of course, invite new members to the team. If new staff are hired or someone wants to be more involved, make sure you include those people as well. So, a few tips for having meetings in person. So make sure you have a location with enough tables and chairs for everybody. Nothing's worse than you get to a meeting and you're short a few chairs, right? Make sure you have flip charts and markers, somewhere that you guys can write things down and everyone can see that. Post-it notes are really helpful. A lot of times people can jot down their ideas, or you can do voting or all sorts of things with Post-it notes. They can be very useful. Sometimes you can make these fun, have some Play-Doh, cush balls, stress balls. It's good sometimes for people to play with their hands because keeping their hands busy sometimes makes people focus more. So if you have a group of people that may enjoy that, definitely try to make it more creative. And then consider your space and topic. Do you need a whiteboard with markers? Maybe do you need hookups for technology? Do you need any graphs for any data that needs to be shown? So try to plan ahead so your team can be ready accordingly and that meeting can be very productive. Tips for a virtual meeting. Turn your camera on. In the new world of all virtual meetings, it's really helpful to turn your camera on so everybody can see each other's faces. It's more engaging. It's a lot more personal. The features now on these virtual platforms are really helpful. And, use your screen to share, use that virtual whiteboard, use those sources that are available to you. Be creative. So IEHSS has created different backgrounds for each team role. So, use a virtual background so you can see what role you have for the day, whether that's the leader, reporter, or whatnot. And those are available to you guys. So sometimes that's helpful as well. So you know who's who with your camera on and you can identify who's the leader very quickly. Try to minimize any distractions. Working from home or remote locations can be very distracting sometimes. So try to plan ahead and minimize as many distractions as possible. And then use your chat features in breakout rooms as well. So how do we strengthen the meeting? It's really important to build relationships, get to know each other. Once you guys get to know each other, you'll be more comfortable talking about some of the difficult things or, coming up with more ideas and being creative. And also you need to decide, how will you make any decisions? Will it be a multi-vote? Will it be majority wins? Do you have to have a consensus? So make sure you try to determine those right up front. It's also important to have meeting rules. Like I said earlier, minimize interruptions. Maybe cell phones need to be silenced. Turn that camera on for virtual meetings. Rules like this, your team should develop together. And this also will help the meeting be more successful. Also listening, respect each other. And of course, you got to make sure you laugh a little. And we'll talk about meeting roles a little bit more in a little bit more detail in a few slides. So having good communication into and out of improvement teams meetings is essential. So you need to make sure you create a really good strategy. So here are a few good ideas for how to create a strategy to communicate to the rest of the team on what's going on. Now, you want to make sure everybody's involved in the game. Everyone has ownership in this. Once you have a process, make sure you stick to it. Don't change it every time and then everybody's confused as to what to expect. Sometimes you can be creative. You can have a little newsletter, or maybe you send a weekly email. If you have like an intranet group that your facility uses, you can use that, or those screensavers sometimes. Be creative, see what's open to you in your organization. Sometimes just even having monthly meetings and take 5 minutes out of that meeting to give everybody an update. Or a buddy system. If there's, for example, one nurse on the meeting, but there's other nurses, maybe that nurse can communicate to the remainder of the nurses as an example. So be creative, find what works for you and your department. So ground rules. So having ground rules can really help. And here are some ideas to think about that we have found that work really well. So, practice to not interrupt each other. And, that's another thing that's helpful, sometimes with cameras on in virtual meetings, but, try to let someone finish their thoughts before you start to include your own thoughts. Make sure you include others' ideas. A lot of people sometimes, if they feel their idea is not important, they may not speak up again. So we really want to make sure everybody feels valued. The golden rule, do unto others as you wish them do unto you. Try not to repeat the same point. So, just repeating the same point doesn't necessarily emphasize your point any better. So try to just say it one time and leave it be. Sometimes just because things have always been done the same way doesn't mean we should keep doing them. So sometimes it's good to put those on the back burner and see, can we learn something new? Try not to be too nice either at the expense to help the group process thinking. Practice forgiveness for new ideas. And, like we talked about earlier, laugh a little. It's really important. Sometimes when we create these meetings, they can become really tense. So make sure you have some humor in there and keep it light so we can continue to move forward. Tom and Nabel's meeting rules. So Tom and Nabel were amazing senior leaders at UC Davis, and they worked with Margie to transform their healthcare system. And they were really good leaders who modeled improvement and leadership. And so here were some of their meeting rules that they found very successful. Participate in the meeting and not in the hallway. Speak to the agenda item being discussed. Stay focused, stay on task. Plan your words to conserve time. Clearly state an opinion or a fact. And if there's a fact, make sure you reference that fact. And then also, if you have an opinion, make sure you only say I when it's your opinion, and say we only when you actually have permission from the group to speak as a we. And then another very common rule is if you oppose, you must propose. So let's talk about what the work of the improvement team is specific to holding regular meetings to organize and plan improvement work. So these are the 7-step meeting processes that we feel really add organization, structure, and discipline to the meeting. So first, we need to clarify aims. What are we doing in the meeting? What are we going to get done? Second, we want to review the roles. So who's going to be the leader, recorder, timekeeper, and facilitator. We want to make sure we review the agenda items and determine time for each item. We would then want to work through those agenda items, review that meeting record, make sure everybody's on the same page to what was recorded in the meeting, and then make sure we put that record somewhere where everyone in the team has access to it. We then want to plan the next action items and the next agenda. So what do we need to do between now and the next meeting? And what are we going to do at the next meeting? And finally, evaluate the meeting. What went well? What could have been done better? So we're going to get a little bit more into detail into each one of these steps. So clear goal. There must be a purpose for the meeting. What are we doing here? Why do we need to meet? What's the purpose? It's really important for everyone to be on the same page. We don't want to waste anybody's time. Everyone's very busy, so we want to make sure we're here for a purpose. And we also want to know when the meeting is going to begin and end. When's the anticipated end date for this meeting? We also need to determine who's going to participate, who are going to be our regular team members. And then also sometimes you may need to invite somebody else into the meeting, somebody else that may have more knowledge about an item to be discussed. And that's why it's important to always plan your next meeting. So if there's a person that maybe has a lot of ownership in a topic that'll be discussed, make sure everybody's there around the table that can make these decisions and make sure this meeting is as productive as possible. So here's a sample agenda for you all. And this template is available as part of all the materials on the website for you all. So this is a great thing to start using for your meeting. And as you can see here, there's different agenda items and how much time you'll need. And on this next slide here, you can see that this is filled in. So it's a little more helpful here as far as, what an agenda should look like and also what it should look like after the meeting. As you can see in the action items section, the point of taking notes is this shouldn't be, verbatim what's happening in the meeting. These are action items. And you can see there's just bullet points on what needs to be done. So this is a summary. This isn't everything that happened in the meeting, action items, keep it short, sweet, and to the point. And then you can see also on here, it follows up with who would be responsible for this and when that would be due. So this is really helpful. And it's a quick, easy way to look at, as far as what went on in the meeting, what was accomplished, what needs to be done. And, ahead of time, this should also be sent out to the group so everyone can look ahead at the agenda to see what, will be done at the following meeting. So effective meeting processes. So what does an effective meeting look like? During an effective meeting, we need to make decisions. We want to make sure we manage our time. If the meeting's going to be an hour, we need to keep that meeting to an hour. We want to make sure we share leadership. Everyone should be involved. Everyone has an important role in this. We want to make sure everyone is listening and contributing to our meeting so we can be as successful as possible. We want to make sure we give feedback at the end of that meeting. If there was something that could have been done better, let's talk about it so we can make the next meeting better. Want to make sure we manage any conflict. If there's something going on, let's talk about that so we can move forward. We can move past that. We don't want to make any barriers. We want to make sure we learn to work together. We want to learn new things. That's the point of meeting with other people, having that. That's part of the whole meeting process, right? In teams. And of course, like we've talked about before, you got to have a little fun. So improvement meeting roles. So there are different meeting cards and meeting roles available for you all as part of your resources as well. And you can see here, there are 5 cards here. We have the leader, the participant, facilitator, timekeeper, and recorder. And these cards are very helpful. And so during a meeting, I recommend, especially when you start out, you use these meeting cards physically in your meeting. And the leader has your card, you review it. And it's also clear if you're meeting in person to everybody there, who's that leader, because they have that leader card, for example. So be sure to use these. These are a really helpful resource. So we'll go through each of the roles here. So the meeting leader. So they're responsible for making sure that agenda is ready to go for the meeting and everybody has that agenda ahead of time so it can be reviewed. And then their role is going to be leading the group through the agenda items. So keep everybody on task. But they also need to participate in the meeting. It's also important for them, if they have something to say, they need to share that as well. Of note, though, the actual leader of the organization should not be the leader in the meeting. It's okay to rotate through this, but initially it's good for other members to lead the improvement work. This really creates a culture of more openness and it develops other people's leadership skills. We don't want to make sure it's, the leader of the organization is always going to be leading these meetings. So, make sure, especially in the beginning, the leader of the organization is not the leader in the meeting. So facilitator. The facilitator keeps the meeting focused and moving smoothly. They're facilitating discussion. So as the leader moves the team through the items on the agenda, the facilitator is going to make sure everybody's participating. If there's a person that hasn't really spoken up, that's the job of the facilitator to have that person talk and, make sure their voice is heard. We've all been in meetings where you have somebody that constantly interrupts or takes over the conversation. This is where the facilitator can help out. They also are there to help make any decisions. So if there's a decision to be made, like a vote, for example, the facilitator then will run that and that will be their responsibility. The facilitator also is there, if there's a discussion brought up that's not on the agenda, they can then suggest an offline follow-up, or they can talk to the team about if this is important to be discussed today and then reprioritize the agenda for that day. The facilitator also will help evaluate the meeting. So at the end of the meeting, when everyone evaluates the meeting, the facilitator will go and do essentially a roll call and make sure everybody evaluates the meeting. Sometimes in high conflict topics, the facilitator can be an outside professional, and that is possible. But most of the time in our group work here, the facilitator will be a team member. So the timekeeper. The timekeeper is exactly what it sounds like. They make sure everybody stays on topic. Or sorry, not on topic, excuse me, on time for each topic during the meeting. So if there's a topic that's going on and it is slotted for 15 minutes, the timekeeper then is there to help say, oh, we're halfway through our 15 minutes, we're running low, we're at 1 minute left in our 15-minute time slot. But the timekeeper also then can maybe negotiate it. If this topic is really important and you guys want to spend more than 15 minutes, then the timekeeper can say, okay, if we want to spend 5 more minutes, where are we going to take the other 5 minutes away? Because it's really important to stay on time. It's very frustrating if you are planning an hour time slot and then the meeting runs over 5-10 minutes, then, it's kind of a domino effect for the rest of your day. So the timekeeper then job is very important to, kind of make sure we're always staying in our specified time frame. And this role can also be stressful. Sometimes it's hard if you're going to interrupt somebody at a higher power than you and say, yep, time's up. So there's other creative ways to be a timekeeper besides just verbally saying time's up. If you get a cush ball, you can throw the cush ball in the middle of the table, and that's a cue for everyone involved that, oh, time's running up here. We need to, either move on or end the discussion. You can also use your phone timer. We all have cell phones, and you can use the handy dandy stopwatch timer on your phone. Otherwise, you can use the virtual background. So these slides are also available to you, where you'll have the timekeeper slide behind you, and then the time will automatically count down. So they have different times. So it's like 5 minutes, they'll have 5 minutes, and the timer essentially is running, and the colors will change, which is really kind of cool. So as the times, you're good, you have plenty of time, it'll be green, then it'll change to yellow to red as time is up. So use these resources too. These are all creative ways to do this, and be creative in this, but it can be a more stressful role than one would think sometimes. So the recorder. So the recorder is going to document those action items on the agenda. Like we kind of talked about earlier, this is not detailed minutes. These are true action items, bullet points. And we want to make sure they record in a manner that everyone can see in real time, whether that's sharing your computer screen or you're writing on a whiteboard, flip chart, whatever it is that your team decides that you're going to do, make sure everybody can see this. That way, in real time, everyone can make sure everybody's staying on the same page. It's clear as to what is happening and as to what should be done in the next meeting. The recorder also needs to make sure after the meeting is over and all the agenda is complete, they need to make sure they send it out to the rest of the team so that everybody can have those minutes. And then they also need to make sure it's saved in a shared location. So whatever your team decides is best to share it, that everyone has access to it. Then we have the participant. The participant is actively going to participate in the meeting. The participant needs to make sure they're following the ground rules, hold each other accountable. They should be wanting to understand and build relationships with the other team members. And the participant also needs to rotate through the meeting roles. So maybe 1 week they're the timekeeper, next week they're the participant, following week maybe they need to be the leader. So everybody will rotate through these roles. And it's also to help, they should encourage one another and help each other talk. If you want in your own time, Google Research actually has a lot of really good information on kind of being a good participant, team building activities, things like that. So if you want to take the time, I would recommend going through the Google Research website and have a lot of good information. So I've mentioned a few times that we need to be rotating meeting roles. And why do we need to do this? Well, we want to make sure we're strengthening our team. When you rotate meeting roles, you also have a new respect for the challenges that each role will hold. The difficulties of maybe being a facilitator or a recorder, and then you'll have respect for your coworker who does that role the following week. It also makes sure everybody is practicing and learning new skills. Sometimes somebody may be very timid in the beginning and they may be very nervous to be the leader. But as the team meeting or as the team progresses and you're going through these meetings and all this improvement processes, you may see this person develop leadership skills. And that's really important for our team members. And ultimately, we want to add value to each team member. It makes people feel important. We want to make sure everybody feels included. So mature teams role development. So mature teams, after months of a team practicing all the meeting roles, a leader can also assume the role of the facilitator. So we can combine the leader and the facilitator role down the road. So that's something to consider as well. And then at first, the leader sometimes is really focused on getting through that agenda. And sometimes the leader does miss hints about other team members' participation. Sometimes they can stray off the agenda or, use of any key meeting tools. So once again, this is important as the team progresses to kind of focus on these things and be aware that these things are common, and goals to kind of look forward as well, once your team progresses through the improvement process. So, in summary, effective meetings practice and provide the bedrock for your improvement work, right? We want to make sure everyone is using their time efficiently. Time is valuable. We want to make sure we're making the most of it. You want to make sure we stay organized, because organization helps us have those productive meetings. We want to make sure everyone's engaged in our improvement work. We want everyone to be involved as a team. And we also want team members to work together towards a common and shared goal, because that's so important. When you bring people together and you have that common goal, it really helps build team relationships and all those, good leadership qualities and things like that. And finally, integrating this practice into your regular work routines, this makes this, a lot easier for everyone on the team to consider this as a regular thing. It's becoming a habit. It's also going to maximize your chance of delivering any sort of successful improvement work for patients, families, and your own microsystem. So really, there's long-term benefits that this daily work, the more you do it, the better you are, the more routine becomes. So stick with it and you'll see all the benefits involved. And here's the references used during this presentation. And thank you so much for joining our presentation today. Please reach out to the team if you have any questions or myself. Thank you so much.